This is a short video of Program Express, the cloud-based portfolio program and project reporting solution that we will be using for project and program reporting on the RCL GDPR project. Program Express is a cloud-based solution, so RCL has a specific database set up in the cloud, and this is the solution of choice for project and program reporting for the GDPR project. So this is a short intro. It's going to be followed on with a webinar, but this gives you a flavour of what Program Express is and why we'll be using it, and a very brief show of how we make updates. So I'm going to log on. You can be an administrator, you can be a write access user, or a read-only user. So I'm going to log on as an administrator, and this takes us into what we call our home screen, and where we start to configure a program of activity and where we can show the data that sits behind each of the projects. So from our home screen, if I open up Project Longclaw, you will see and recognize the work streams 1 to 8, and if I open up workstream 1, you'll see the 3 sub areas within workstream 1, and the same will apply for all the other work streams. You will see on the right hand side, you'll see icons which show the modules within Program Express, better described through the Updates tab as commentary, and this will be expected to be updated, plan, resources, costs, benefits, impacts, risks, and logs. Now, a lot of these modules aren't required for GDPR, and when I show you the view of how it looks, they will have been, some of the things will have been filtered out. For example, impacts, benefits, costs, and resources. And the requirement will be for commentary, maybe plan, risks, and logs. So from this screen, what we can do, if I close those work streams down, just back to the original view, what we will see is that from here, we can go into any one of our sub-projects, and we can select the project, and we can update the commentary, for example, as the first example. And if I click on the status, you will see there are commentary threads, and you will recognize from the updates that you did just before Christmas of overall status, progress last period, decisions and escalations, focus for next period. Plenty of other commentary threads to update, but not all specifically required for the GDPR project. And as you save a comment, then your latest comment will move to the top. So you'll see this slightly out of order, but it moves all the things that we don't need to do down to the bottom. So from there, I go back to the home screen, and for all of these areas, plan, resources, which isn't required, costs, impacts, benefits, impacts, but the risks and logs, and I'll explain those in more detail in a minute, will be required to be updated. So you select the project and you click on the square to make an update in the specific area. So why are we doing this, and what does it give us? So if I specifically go to data mapping, what you will see within the shared reports, you can either have reports that you've set up yourself, don't worry too much about that, or shared reports that have been set up specifically at the moment, and these can be changed and added to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a one-page project summary by work stream. So you make the updates, and this is a report that can then come out, so data mapping milestones, a bit like your Sprint 2, although your Sprint 2 is slightly more detailed and bespoke for your work stream, overall progress, focus on expert decision escalations. So that's an automatic report that can come out, and I could run that at Project Longclaw level and have a project summary by work stream by clicking on there, and it will produce data mapping, privacy impact. So from running from the top level, it means that I can produce the reports for all of those sub-projects that are specifically started. Now also what we can do, if these are all populated, we can run what we call a program status report, a RAG status. So you'll see automatically now project long-term and the work streams, and by updating the commentaries we can automatically produce this report, and this is the report that we will use for the Tuesday PM sync up. Now we can run any reports that we want to by going into the reporting screen, and we have what we call default reports, RAG status, one-page summaries, other examples of report risks, logs, etc., etc. And once we've decided what settings we want within here, then we save it with a project name or with a report name and save it, and that automatically then goes into the saved reports. And if I went back to my home screen, specifically me as the user would now be able to see that report and be able to automatically run from there. So what we've done is we've set up some of these reports specifically for GDPR or a starter for 10. Now in terms of making an update, you'll be pleased to know that you will not see all of the modules as a project manager because we've filtered out certain roles, and you will also be able to see all of these work streams, but you will only be able to update the areas that you've been given access to. So I'm going to now just change and log on, not as an administrator, but as an SEI project manager, and you all have your own user IDs, but I'm using a generic name of SEI PM, and then a login ID of password of SEI PM. And when you first log on, we've given you a password and it will ask you to change it. And I now log in as the SEI project manager, and this is the view that you will see. Now the example here would be you have control to update workstream 1. So if I open up workstream 1 and it says view what we have right access to, you will see the 3 sub-projects within workstream 1. You will also see that we've filtered out the modules not required. So easily you'll be able to know that we expect, for data mapping, we expect the commentary to be populated, and we would do that by clicking on data mapping. You'll see the previous comment. If I want to make an update, I will make an update X's, Y's, Z's. That's my update for the overall general health of the project, and then we need to save if we're only making that update to 1, or we'll put progress last period, we'll do A's and B's, decisions and escalations, C's and D's, focus for next period, E's and F's. When we've made our summary update, and we're looking for 3 to 5 bullet points for each area, we then click save, and that becomes the latest update that sits within here. And you'll also see that what we are capturing now is an audit trail of comments that have been made over a period of time, who the project manager is and when they said what. So here I can view all 3 comments, and it can see that that was my ID that made the updates on your behalf, but you'll see the comments that have been made. So we've immediately got an audit trail of all comments. If I don't want that comment, I'll just click on it, go yes, and then it will default everything back to the previous update. Those are just examples. And we're back to where we were before. So back to the home screen, or from my updates tab, I could now go to the plan screen. Don't specifically expect any updates. It's very high level at the moment. Obviously, it's just the sprints, so we don't expect any specific updates in this area. The But if I go through to risks, this is what we do require, that if you want to flag a risk within any one of the areas, and if I go up to an example where we have some already started, a project long clause, we can have program risks and project risks, and here we've got progress to completion of sprint 2, which is critical, is unclear. Expert reviews in place to plug the gaps. There are a couple of lines that we don't necessarily want, but we can't actually change that. So you'll see that you've got a view access to that, but you can't actually change it. So if I go back to my data mapping, because I've got access, and go back into risks, I can add a row, and I can make a change of add a risk, X's, who by, let's say Tim, created, review, and due date, likelihood and impact, and this is quite important. If it's a high likelihood and a high impact, that will make it red. If it's a low likelihood and a high impact, it will make it green. And if it's medium, it'll be amber. And depending on the severity, will depend on the impact, will depend on the RAG status. And we have an expectation that specifically or mandatory that any red risks that you flag should be entered in here. And you can use this as your risk log for your ambers and greens. But if it's high likelihood, high impact, this is what will be escalated to program level and to senior business leader level. So that we put the mitigating actions in here. What are you doing about it? And again, you can have an audit trail of mitigating actions over a period of time. If I don't want that, I'll just delete it, and I'll delete the whole thing now because that was just a test. But once we've made any changes, again, we click save on there. The same for logs. In terms of, and logs, what we have in here are what we call issues, actions, decisions, lessons learned, meeting minutes, new resource requests. That's a specific ask in terms of a log there. So again, a bit like the risk screen, if we have an action or we have an issue that's big ticket that needs to be shown to the program team and to the senior business team, you'd put your description, like the risks within there, and then you would set a RAG status depending on the severity or the escalation you wanted and visibility you wanted in terms of that risk. Not the likelihood and impact, just red, amber or green from that perspective. So the ask is for each, by work stream, by sub-project, and specifically within here, work stream 1, this is the example. What we can do is we can update all of these, but if we want to view, we can toggle to a read access, and that will show us all the work streams, but you will not be able to make an update in anything but work stream 1 because that's your access rights. Click on policies and procedures, that's work stream 2. You'll see I'm clicking around. I cannot make any updates to work stream 2 because I've only been given access to work stream 1, which obviously in this case is Tim. So Tim would see this view, and there Michelle would see work stream 2 and work stream 4 for right access, and Yaz would see work stream 3 and 5, and Patricia would see work stream 7 and 8 for right access and be able to select for read access for the others. So the point being that very simple updates within these areas, and then automatically we'll be able to produce any one of these reports. And very quickly, I'm going to go back to being an administrator where I've got more access rights. And let me show you an example within workstream 6, for example. And we can record actions, issues, risks at the workstream level or at the sub level if we want to, it doesn't matter. But if I go to risks on workstream 6, you'll see that we've added one, not kicked off as yet, and no resource identified to lead. If there is one in security and incident, there isn't. Systems and enhancements, no, there isn't from that perspective. but you will be able to also be able to see where there is no data because it doesn't have a red, amber or green populated. But specifically with logs and maybe actions, I'm now going to go over at the top level, Project Longclaw, Program Actions. You will see here there are several actions that have already been added. Actions, decisions. In this case, there are no issues that have been loaded to date, and these have just been loaded and they need mitigating actions put in place. What that allows us, if everybody updates their risks, issues, actions, is that at the highest level, we could now go to our shared reports and now go to an action log just showing the red actions. These are the actions that need to be shared at Program Senior Business Lead information. So we'll see we started now an action log. And if I go back and I say, well, I want to see the red risks, we've just started to populate this, but this will aggregate as you add your risks to your level. So we've just got a couple in there for now. Some of them have been mitigated. And again, we've got an issue log. And we're concentrating on the red actions, decisions, issues, and risks. And that is mandatory. If you have those, please enter them. If you wish to use other tools within your project to manage at a sort of like a more detailed task level, that's fine. This is what we want for visibility in terms of reporting to program level. So hopefully that's just given you a flavour pre-webinar as to how and why we'll be using Program Express to commence the program project reporting. So more detail on the webinar, but just this is to give you a short-term flavour. Thank you for watching.